Welcome, everybody, to a monumentous occasion when you get to witness the birth of the rebrand finally here in its final form. Drew and JC are here tonight with an awesome guest that you're going to get to meet after you see and hear the newest, the latest intro from the Watchers.
Welcome to the Watchers Podcast Network, the only source for film, TV, horror, music, pro wrestling, stand-up comedy, and the paranormal, all in one channel. If you're a fan of our shows, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends.
What is the best? You got the best, the hardest part in the world.
Specifically like that you hype it up so much and then it comes off like a BBC broadcast.
And that's exactly what the hype was about. And we have an awesome guest tonight, somebody that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a while. And unfortunately, he, left me like you did to live in Ohio. But I call him the mad scientist anytime I refer to him because he's just a incredible talent in independent film. William Long is joining us tonight. How are you doing tonight, Bill?
Thank you, Andrew. I'm doing well.
Yeah, it's good to hear. So I first met you I feel like almost 10 years ago at this point. I was trying to get a documentary together about one of the last remaining video stores in the area, and the owner had put us in contact with each other, and I ended up working on a film with you that was called Zombie Beast of the Confederacy that you were helping out with.
Yes, with Troy Fritz.
Yeah, that was a lot to take in by itself, but we had a lot of fun. Yeah, a real interesting cat. But we would, get together and I'd help you kind of with like some second unit stuff. I remember you had built a rocket and I helped you puppeteer it for the film.
Yep.
And so it was a lot of fun to hang out and work on movies and talk about movies with you. So I'm really glad to have you here tonight so that we can continue to do that.
Thank you.
10 years ago, I met him 10 minutes ago. It's synchronicity.
And one thing that's really cool here is, I have over the years really tried to get podcasts going and off the ground, and it's been a medium that I have always desired to be a part of. And after we worked together on that film, you and I did a podcast where I interviewed you. And at the time I was doing the show, it was called the Christianity Podcast, a little pun based off of my last name. And I talked to you about your dream projects and stuff that you wanted to work on. And you sat down and you talked about a little film that you had in your head developing called Cannibal Tick.
Yes.
And now since that conversation, you've made that film.
Twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
the first attempt we made in Pennsylvania, and it was extremely low budget, but it turned out pretty decent. It hasn't been distributed. That version hasn't been distributed yet, but we revamped it, made it a little more campy and a little crazy, and we re-released it on SRS Videos.
Right, yeah. And I don't know if it's still on TUBI, but I remember watching it on TUBI
Yes, I believe it's still on there.
Yeah, so everybody, you should check it out. But that original podcast that I referenced, it's long gone or lost on the internet, and I really don't have a reference point for it. So maybe we can get into a little bit about Cannibal Tick and what it meant to you and developing it, and how you came to actually have it filmed and distributed this time.
Originally, I started off working for a small wrestling group, and I would record their matches and edit them and burn them on the DVDs. And it was like making a small movie every month for their show. And I did that for a good many years. And a lot of the wrestlers that I met were doing indie films at the time. So I seriously got the bug for acting and making movies and editing. And I always wanted to do it. So we put it together and we filmed it in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, in a building that I was working in at the time. And when we put it all together, I was amazed how it turned out. I mean, for zero budget and everybody making the props and stuff like that, it actually turned out halfway decent. So when I moved to Ohio, I moved here to work with other indie film groups, and we had done like 4 movies together in all. And we were taking a break in between, waiting for them to be released and everything. And a friend of mine, Ross Carlo, he started a group later called Pooh House Productions. And I was telling him about making Cannibal Tick, and I showed it to him. And he's like, "Well, why didn't you ever release this?" I said, "Well, there are other things I wanted to do with it. I wanted to take it farther." So he knew a lot of people around the area, and he had a compound of buildings and stuff that we could use for sets. So in between on our break, we decided, well, we'll get our friends together and we'll redo Cannibal Tick. And then we finally got it finished and we distributed it. So people
Did you?
seem to like it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Did you borrow anything from the first time that you shot it, or did you reshoot everything straight?
No, we redid the entire thing. The story changed slightly just to make it easier for the shooting because we didn't have the same people. But uh, a good friend of mine who lived right next to me in Johnstown played the evil scientist in the movie, and he had passed away in between. So that's the picture you see my character holding up in the laboratory.
Oh, okay. That's a nice little Easter egg cameo. Um,
It's ironic because that guy that was in there, Paul, his last name was Burkett. When I moved out here, I met a man named Vince Burkett, and I did 2 movies with him, and it's like, well, it's weird that the names are the same. So I asked him about it, and he asked some relatives, and come to find out he's a cousin to
oh
the guy
wow.
we're neighbors with
Hmm.
in Pennsylvania. So
Yeah, it's small world.
yeah,
It's always a small world in those instances. Uh, yeah, wow. Okay, that's a neat tidbit. That's incredible. Um, so, for anybody who might not be familiar, can you give us the general plot synopsis of Cannibal Tick?
okay. Originally, it started out the synopsis was that a very wealthy cattle baron goes to a scientist to conduct some illegal genetic experiments. His cows are being killed off by a tick that gives his cows diseases so that it just spoils the meat, they can't sell it, and he's losing a shit ton of money on it. So this scientist designs a genetically designed tick that will eat other ticks and wipe out the tick population so that the cows aren't affected anymore. And what ends up happening is they grow out of control and they start attacking humans. They basically turn into cannibals for everything. They just devour everything made of flesh that they find. So our characters get together and they blow up the laboratory that it was in, but you see one tick escape at the end, so it's kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah. Are you planning to do more?
Yeah, we're already working on the script for Cannibal Tick 2, but in the
Uh,
meantime, I've been working with a dozen other groups out here doing other movies.
yeah, you're kind of a journeyman filmmaker. You just seem to love it, and if I recall, I remember you had told me once that it was something that you just kind of really enjoyed doing because your children were involved with you too, and it gave you something to do with them, and just you guys seem to always just be working on something. If it wasn't one of their projects, there was somebody else's project, and I remember you were editing for people, and uh,
The first picture we actually started on was a backyard camcorder movie I made with my kids, and it just took off from there.
are you?
I think I was in a couple of those with Drew's his backyard camcorder movies.
Mm,
Yep.
we're
I think
not
I
allowed
think
to
I'm
talk about those.
oh we aren't. That's against the rules. I think I'm watching Cannibal Tick right now. This very much looks like you. I'm watching it on YouTube. I've been kind of gonna watch the whole thing, but I've been skipping through, and I'm in a scene where like there's some guy drinking beer, and you're talking to him. You have a potato chip in your hand.
Okay, yeah, that's the second incarnation of it. That's the one that's
okay.
there on Tubi.
Yeah, so that's for anybody watching.
Yep, there it
Yeah.
is.
Right there.
My shining moment.
Yeah, looks great. Looks great. I like the addition of the corncob pipe, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
That was a fun scene actually, because I remember he had the person that you're speaking to in the movie had was it an Irish accent?
Scottish, yeah.
Scottish, yeah. And so he's like going real over the top with this Scottish accent, and yeah,
It's
man,
pretty thick.
That's
actually my partner Ross Carlo in the Pooh House Productions.
yeah. So you started making those movies with your children. Well, I believe was that Welcome to Results is the one that
Yeah,
you were referencing? I actually
there was actually 3 that we did as like the backyard type movies.
I have to
Welcome
look.
Result was the best
Yeah,
one.
I have to look into it, but I'm pretty sure I still have all of those on DVD because
Yeah.
you had given me copies of them, and I am 90% certain I still have them up there with the rest of my movies. Are they still online? If anybody wanted to check those out,
I believe Welcome to Results is on my YouTube page.
and that's Dark Long Productions.
Yeah.
Okay, I think
under Bill Long. I think it's on both of them.
See if I can grab it here.
you had another YouTube page that I to this day always tell people to check out. What was I can't remember what it was called off the top of my head, but you would recycle junk and turn it into film equipment.
Oh yeah, it was Video Junk E.
Yeah. People should check that out too.
I went out and found like just any useless broken piece of junk and tried to make like cranes and lights and just try to make films cheaper.
Yeah, and it worked too. Like I remember the lighting rig that you had was something that you had built just from going out and just grabbing stuff off of curbs. I think you told me on cleanup nights.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, just like this whole lighting rig was just put together with just all this random stuff. That's why when I said at the beginning of the show, that's why I consider him like the mad scientist of indie filmmaking, is because man, when I fell into that world with him, it was just kind of amazing to see all of the weird trinkets and stuff that he was able to just engineer and put to use. It was inspiring.
Hey,
Is there?
even though I'm working on more advanced movies and sets now, I still do the same thing. I'll show up with a light made out of pie pans and get weird looks, but they still work.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I saw a very short wrestling cameo at the beginning of this movie.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
Is that
uh,
RWA?
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I work with a man he does all of our stunt coordinating. His name is John Kathleen. He wrestles under the name The Bouncer, and he owns the RWA show.
Yeah, and I believe I've seen you post images. Where does he also operate a film company? Was he the one that had done the film about a boxer that you were involved with?
No, that's another company. We're actually still shooting that one. It's called Standing in Youngstown. That's Joey
I
B calls himself.
Sure, that won't be the only thing standing in Youngstown.
I
Yeah.
know someone that isn't. Oh, but that's a interesting. That's an interesting. Sorry, as an inside joke there. I didn't think it
Ah,
was gonna catch us the way
I'm
it did.
I'm I get giddy about these kind of like films here, and I'm just like skimming through it here while you guys are talking, and this is I mean like I don't even have words to put it in, just like how happy like I got to sit down tomorrow and watch this whole thing.
It's an interesting watch.
I mean, this
Yeah,
just the Scottish accent alone is so thick and heavy that like I had to replay a couple times to even tell what this guy was saying. But it's so, and I mean this in an endearing way. It's so campy that
Yeah,
it's like you can't
exactly.
not love something like that, right?
that is my first love in horror and independent film. Is the campier the better.
When no,
I
when did you film this second iteration? Was this during COVID that this was filmed, or
Um, just at the beginning of it.
okay?
So production wasn't interfered by it.
No, the groups of people that we worked with were iffy, I guess you would say, about the mandates and all that stuff. So,
Sure.
It's good to get a project done. Um,
and a couple 6 packs of beer, nobody cares about viruses. So,
Yeah, after so many beers, nobody cares about a virus, right?
yep.
yeah, it could have just solved the whole thing with a couple of cases of beer. But what are your inspirations? For me, it's always Trauma and Lloyd Kaufman. That's the Toxic Avenger. That's where I really got lured into this stuff, and obviously throughout the years, you learn so much, and I'm super into the Italian side of things now, and I'm just curious,
The,
where do
the
you
old
lend that?
Italian horror movies were great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think mine started mainly with like the series Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street. It's like the three basic food groups for horror fans.
you
Sure.
have the Friday the 13th shirt on right now,
No, yeah.
and I'm rocking Freddy. So you got
There
the
you
Elm
go.
Street shirt on.
Yeah,
It's
I got the dog hair special.
Yeah, actually earlier today I was doing acting classes.
oh
Uh,
really?
yeah, I'm taking them with a man named Peter Lusick. He wrestled under the name Pete Steele or Preston Steele.
I think that name
It sounds
rings a bell.
familiar.
Yeah,
He did the Doink the Clown for a while too.
Oh,
that
okay.
honestly might be why I know him. One of
Yeah,
the 100 different doinks.
yeah. He had his own show for a while. He was on some of the bigger shows. He wrestled overseas,
Oh, awesome.
and now he's an actor.
And is he these classes? Is this something that he's like? Is it a larger class, or is this kind of more personable,
No,
just like
it's
the two
all
of you?
me and him taking it online.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well, how's that going?
I'm learning a lot. My ultimate goal was to figure out what goes on the other side of the camera, just to help me better understand the actors, because I've been working with a group called Five Stone Filmworks, and it's a bigger film projects, but they're faith-based films, and I'm the assistant director for them, so I have to deal a lot more with you know don't interrupt the actor when they're getting into their zone and that kind of thing.
I that's not something that I have a ton of familiarity with. Uh, one thing that so there's maybe one movie that I've ever done that I didn't film and I didn't write and I didn't direct, and that was Zombie Beast. And I do remember there were that was just as ragtag as it gets. There were some wrestlers, there were all of us extras and helpers, and there was one woman who was an actor who he had brought in, and I know she traveled from I don't know where, and she like stole somebody's chair and needed to feel accommodated, and um
Oh yeah, I remember that.
yeah,
It's
and this
actually two women came together. One was supposed to be in the movie, but they both ended up being in it, and they were obnoxious and pushy. And we've been in 100 movies, but then when I looked it up afterwards, I found out they were like extras in 4 or 5 movies. But
yeah,
yeah, that was bad.
yeah, they were just demanding accommodations and wanted on the fly script rewrites.
Yeah,
This whole time we're just kind of applying zombie makeup, and this is all going on. And
and people
yeah,
rolling in the dirt and tearing their clothes.
yeah, no, that was fun. I was one of those people.
Yeah,
There was only there was X amount of people that needed zombie makeup done, and there was only one artist there, so a lot of us were just kind of helping out, doing what we could. I know I did mine, and the two guys that I had brought, I did their makeup too. And I'm still honestly like I'm still a little impressed with how ours turned out, considering I was just throwing makeup on somebody's face and having them roll around in the dirt.
yeah. You'd be surprised. Most of the film sets I work on, that's usually how it goes. It's like limited resources, and everybody pitches in,
Yeah.
and that's
Have
the fun
you?
part of it.
Yeah, it's always that. When man, when we were doing our film of Dyson Men, I was the diva. Okay, so they called me Christian
It's not
Bale for
the
a little
only
while.
time he's the diva. And then unfortunately he didn't exit like Chris, like Bell did either. So sorry.
uh,
Dark
so
humor.
I know what it's like to kind of be on that other side of it, as far as like we need to do it this way, it has to be done, follow the lines exactly how I write them, and do it this way. And I was very much the director's director. I was a boss. I had the vision. I needed it to be fulfilled, and when it wasn't being fulfilled, I turned into Christian Bale with his tantrum that he had at the time. So when you're filming and you're dealing with a diva that demands to be accommodated, and you have a script that means a lot to you for a movie that you had been developing forever, what's your directing style?
Usually, the more they annoy me, the colder I get. So I'll get to the point where I'll be like, go to your spot, do your point, say your lines, and get it over with. And then I'll go out in the woods and scream my head off. I
At
try
least
I try my best not to lose it on set.
that's honestly probably the best kind of culture to try to cultivate. But is that something that you dealt with a lot on Cannibal Tick in particular?
Actually, Cannibal Tick's one of the few projects that I haven't had to deal with it on. I mean, there's usually always one or two that are, like you said, the diva that comes on set and expects everything. But for the most part, most of the people I've worked with out here, you know, they know that they're not going to become megastars overnight. You know, this is usually a stepping stone to something bigger. So they they pitch in and they play ball.
Do you on that note, do you feel that the actors that end up trying to use that film as that stepping stone, are you seeing a lot of community theater types, or I know that there's like some deep rooted, wrestling involved with the films that you do. There's always like a wrestler. So is that more of like a wrestler trying the actor side? Do we have like community theater people, or are we shipping people in?
Honestly, since I've been in Ohio, I've worked with all of the above. I mean, we've had people fly in from California. We worked with Aki Elion one time. I don't know if you know him, but he was in a couple of the Chuck Norris movies back in the 80s.
Okay.
There's a couple other actors came in from California, and we get a lot of wrestlers. There's one woman I know does community theater, and I think another one may have done it at one time. But yeah, it's the whole spectrum of entertainment. We've had people from television shows and just commercials, all kinds of things.
I'm willing to bet that the wrestlers on set take direction better than anybody else.
Oh yeah, and they're usually they're more helpful when it comes to putting other actors at ease. I mean, they have a strange way of, oh no, this is the way you do it, and the way they explain it to, like, if we have somebody who's never acted before who comes in to do a part and they have no clue what they're doing, I would rather take one of the wrestlers than three of the producers to to get more comfortable with their part, because they're just so used to working in front of people.
Yeah, yeah. It's you're in front of people. You're trying to remember lines that you've been given or instructions, your direction. Then the ability to improvise is second to none to a seasoned pro wrestler. I think uh, I'm surprised that there aren't more acting success stories that start with wrestlers.
Well, that makes two of us. It's like it's hard to find somebody who's that comfortable performing. I mean, it's second nature to them at this point. You know, it's like I was just telling Pete tonight. It's when you're watching two wrestlers in a ring. Basically, you've got the star and the co-star. You know, in every match, they know their lines, they know their positions, they know, the whole scene is mapped out and they know it. They know how to do it. So as far as being an actor, I mean that's the biggest part of it.
Right. And then you have, of course, the range of emotion that they are able to instill with just working with that other individual as well, that I imagine,
Yeah, and
creates
plus you have the good guy and the bad guy. You know, it's like there's a villain and a hero in every match.
yeah. And of course, not everybody listening knows that there are, you know, sections of a wrestling match, so to speak, with with your heats and your comebacks and your finishes and stuff. So that there's little, I mean, like they're acts, right? So a film typically has three acts, right? And then your wrestling match has four. So it's, I mean, it's right there. It's all so interconnected. I always enjoy
Jesse's
seeing,
body Toro when he said it's choreographed violence.
Yeah.
yeah. And so
Still real to me, damn it.
it
Yeah,
should be though, shouldn't it? Like
I go
that's
every month. I love it. It's so entertaining for me.
yeah, that's the point of it. And one of my biggest follies in life was my neck injury that took me out of it. Like I had finally, at the age of 28, went and did it. I passed the tryout and was deep involved, and I was in PWX being trained where Kurt Angle learned how to do it. And um, so that was it. That's always been a big part of my life, and the aspects of my work, come out, whether people realize it or not. If you remove me from these situations, I'm not the over the top kind of personality that I seem to be sometimes, but like it's that wrestling mindset that's just kind of built into you, so that when a situation arises and you have to kind of be that larger than life personality,
Yeah.
it just happens. So sometimes that personality comes out, like my wedding.
Yeah.
When
Drew, I was just gonna say, Drew is constantly in shoot mode. Everything to him is a shoot.
it is. It
He's
is.
gonna shoot on you. He's gonna shoot on the guy at the gas station. He's gonna shoot on me in text messages. It's just a constant shoot.
it's it's exhausting, if you want me to be honest. Sometimes it is exhausting. So I can understand how it's hard for people to be around me. But
I've always
that's
found it endearing.
And then and then on top of that, like halftime, you never know when he's shooting or when it's just like a promo. Like, is this real? Is he actually mad? Like, what's happening?
reality is kind of blended at this point, even for me.
Yeah. Drew's what we're really trying to get at is Drew's schizophrenic.
Yeah. It's not a wrestling
Yeah.
character in my head, it's the voices.
When you first started this podcast, I was like really interested because I'm into all the paranormal avenues too. So it's like
Yeah.
horror movies and paranormal is right up my alley.
Yeah, and
Was interested when we started, and then the interest went.
It's funny when
First
you
episode.
talk about the paranormal, right? So I was obviously deep, deep into that, and I grew up listening to Art Bell on Coast to Coast for years, and it's just always been an interest of mine, right? And then you start doing these shows where you have people come on and you get to learn, and that stuff's always fun. But the deeper you get, and the higher up on the ladder you get, like we talk about wrestling there a minute ago, and there's a culture to wrestling. It's carny business, and it's a lot better now in 2024 than it used to be, but it was always kind of a shady, toxic element to it. I mean, there are quote Hall of Famers who are literally murderers, right? Or people that have been murdered, Brody. But yeah, there's that underbelly exists in the paranormal world too, and it is so strange that people will go that far when they're talking about a ghost or a werewolf or something like that, and the extent that people are willing to undermine someone, or cut their legs out from under them to get a donation. It's insane. I had no idea that it was like that. So when we decided to branch out,
it is just like indie wrestling and indie filmmaking.
yeah, it blew my mind, and I spent some time in the indies, and for the most part, what I saw was quite the opposite of that. And of course, where I was at, we had some really good leadership, and veterans that came in. I actually have a bunch of them coming on to the show now over the next couple of weeks. We have some really killer interviews lined up with some of these guys who are legends in the independent scene, and that's the kind of shit that they wouldn't have tolerated. That's how you get stretched out, and that's the problem with this paranormal community, is nobody's stretching them out. And you start acting up, there is no one to shoot on you, because that's just a different nature of business. So yeah, it can get rough sometimes. It's aggravating. You know, you just want to talk about, you know, spooky stuff, and everything else is interfering. So yeah, man, it's time to talk about movies and wrestling and all the other stuff that we can at least have some enjoyment out of, and not be seen as a stepping stone so that they could sell an item or get a donation from someone or
It's funny.
progress in YouTube.
I always thought that, you know, when like Ghost Hunters and those kind of things when they first came out, to me that was indie filmmaking. You know, you've got a crew running around in the dark with hauling all their equipment and everything, trying to catch evidence of something. And I honestly believe that, you know, if there's ever going to be evidence found, it's going to be some indie filmmaker with a camera running around someplace at night, you know.
Yeah, that guerrilla style filmmaking, like um, that's honestly so fun to do too. Like there's an excitement to it, you know. You don't have permits most of the time.
Yep.
You don't have the opportunity to make sure everybody knows their lines. You're not going to be able to run multiple scenes multiple times. You're out there, you have cameras that you're oftentimes hiding from people,
Yeah.
and you're basically trying to steal your scene from the public. And uh, that's I miss it. It was so fun. And you know, the cops show up. I had the cops called on our production when we used to film back when we were younger. We had the cops called almost every single time we filmed. We had a group of cops come after us one time. We were shooting a scene that didn't even make it in the movie, but we're in a graveyard. It's nighttime. We're a cult of murderers. We're all wearing these like masks, and somebody had reported that there was a satanic cult ritual going on in this graveyard. So next thing you know, there's like 5-0, you know, coming up every direction. There's lights like it was like a drug bust or something, the way that they hit us. And we're like, oh crap, we got to get out of here. So we're like taking off like we were guilty of something, jumping over fences. And that's where having like way more overweight and fatter friends played into it, because they
Don't have to run faster than the cops, just faster than your friends.
yeah, most of us ended up on somebody's porch and we pretended that we lived there.
Well, I remember I don't even remember what we were filming, but there was that scene where I think it was you. I hit you with my car. And you were like actually hit me with the car. So I was like, all right. So I hit Drew with my car. So whoever, I think it was you, and
It was
whoever
me.
it was, it rolls up over, like legitimately I hit him, down an alleyway. And next thing we know, somebody said the cops were coming because we're out here running people over with my car. And I think the closest I wasn't involved in all that. I was only involved in a few of them. But we kind of came back to that a little bit when we made the Melonheads documentary, right? Like it was just guerrilla filming, running out in the woods like wackos, pitch black, running through people's yards and up along creek beds and stuff, trying to get footage.
Yeah, near trespassing and
Yeah.
all this posted land, and even the cops driving around making sure that we were behaving ourselves.
There's been
It's
quite a few times when I've had to give very interesting explanations as to why a group of people in weird costumes are running around in people's backyards.
and it's like they never want to just accept like, oh, we're just shooting something. And
Yeah.
it's funny because if you say we are shooting a film, suddenly you're trespassing. Suddenly
Yeah.
you need to have a permit. You need to do. But if you're an influencer filming for TikTok, none of those rules seem to apply.
Case in point, we were shooting for standing in Youngstown. We were shooting in Mill Creek Park. It's a huge metro park out here. And one of the security people pulled us over because we were like in the car with the camera hanging out the back of the car. We were filming the guy jogging. And he's like, are you filming a commercial or you didn't get a permit? You got to get out of here. I was like, no, it's a YouTube video. He said, oh, okay, go ahead.
Man, this shit is public. It's public property, dude.
Yeah.
Like, you permit. Here's my permit, my ass.
Yeah, the
It's
town
like
that I
you can, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
You could have a picnic there and you can record all day long, your kids running around and stuff, and nobody cares. But you record 10 minutes of a movie scene and it's like all of a sudden you need a $150 permit.
Well, you could potentially be making money and not paying taxes on it, man.
Yeah.
We need that $10 permit fee or 150 or whatever it is. We need it.
Anybody ever shows me how to make money at Indy Films, you know.
Yeah, we're
Spent a lot more
podcasting.
than I made.
It's one of those things though. That's a labor of love.
Yes.
You love doing it, and so that's just kind of almost the price that we pay just to get that artistic release. It's very similar to what we do with the podcast, and obviously the film that we put up. You know, I drove to Ohio from Pennsylvania, hours of my time, and
In between two of the biggest snowstorms
and
ever of like
Yeah.
the last year and a half.
My
Dude,
bright idea.
he comes to my house. We film this. It's snowing and sleeting, and like, even though this place is only like 20 minutes from my house, I'm not familiar with the area at all. So we're just fumbling around, driving around. And at the end of the day, we come back, slug down like a 30-pack of beer, eat some chicken wings, and he went home first thing in the morning.
yeah.
Well,
And
there
I'm
you go. That's indie filmmaking.
great. Yeah. And I make that drive. I come home, and then I slave over the editing process. And I'm not getting paid for that. And then the bright idea, after it's complete and we have a complete film, I'm just going to put it on YouTube for free. You know, someone might watch it then. So, yeah, it's just one of those things that you just have to do if you want to create that art, because it's expensive and you never make any money off of it. But if you don't do it, nobody else is going to make the movie that's in your head.
Mm-hmm.
But almost every indie movie shoot comes with a really cool story. So it's like going on vacation. You know, you can spend the same amount of money to go to a hotel and visit another town, but are you going to come back with as many cool stories as that? Plus, you've got something to show for it at the end. So
Yeah. And Drew found out that the cool story is there's a portal to hell in my bedroom upstairs.
That is something that I believe to be true. I had such weird experiences in that guest area. It was insane. It was wild, right? So I'm like waking up all periodically throughout the night, and I'm having these like dreams that I never woke up once, actually. I was in like this series of dreams where I would wake up, think I was awake, but then I would see a qualifier that would clearly be something where I was still asleep. Like, I woke up and my dog was there. And I was like, yeah, that checks out. I'm going to go back to sleep now. And then I'm like roll over, and next thing you know, I'd wake up again. And I'm like, why am I laying on a bed of rocks right now? And there's just like rocks, like I'm on these rocks. And I was like, wait, I don't remember that, but I guess that checks out. And I would like look over at the TV, and the TV, like, I always sleep with Adult Swim on. And when this was happening, I would look over and I would see like Adult Swim on the TV. And so there's all these things that checked out, but I was absolutely like, my dog wasn't there. It wasn't your dogs. You don't have a chocolate lab like I do.
I don't. Then while this is all occurring, I'm peacefully sleeping with my dogs down in the bedroom. Not being dragged to hell.
Yeah.
And then he wakes up in the morning. He's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna take a Sprite and I'm gonna head out." And he just grabs a Sprite. And then he gets home. And he's like, "Hey man, I think you have a portal to hell in your bedroom." I'm like, "What?"
I couldn't even talk about it. I was up. I actually, like, when I actually woke up for real, like the sun hadn't come up yet, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay if I wake him up. I'm just gonna go downstairs away from this."
And he didn't wake me up though. He just went down and sat on the couch and stared at me.
Yeah,
while I was sleeping.
I was drawing you like it was Titanic.
Like I was one of your French girls.
Yeah, but
You
yeah,
know, not to go too deep. That sometime we'll have to do an episode just about that, because that whole thing was just the whole thing was funny, and we proved like this thing about the doctor didn't exist with like the the story, and we found his grave and all this stuff. But that's story for another time.
Yeah.
but that's it, man. The labor of love of indie filmmaking. What
Yeah.
what is
Uh-oh.
that?
Just making sure you didn't bring it here. That's all.
Oh, I
Okay.
thought he had a stud finder and he was gonna pull one of those dad jokes on us.
We have F detector.
Yeah. Just in case nobody knew, there's a stud here.
Yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, I'm trying to think here what else we can correlate to Cannibal Tick so that we can keep bringing it up so people go watch
Oh,
it and
there's a
promote it
couple
here.
other movies I was just in too.
Oh yeah,
One's on Tubi. It's called Normal Violence.
and
Normal violence.
is this one that you were just part of? This wasn't one of your productions?
This one I was just acting in. The one that's coming out in 2 weeks, I think. It's called Rotten. Welcome to the Freak Show. I was second camera and acting. And there's like 6 movies now on Tubi that I played parts in.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out. I mean, just based on name alone, that's a name that's gonna get me when I'm looking through streaming services. The Rotten one in particular would definitely be something that I land
That
on and
one's
stay
supposed
with.
to be coming out on Folsom.
Okay, awesome. I'll check that out.
Normal Violence is on Tubi now. So.
And there's normal violence, yeah.
So, question there on that note. So when you're working in that field, right? And I know that you're very comfortable in that campy horror role, and uh, how do you have to change any of your work style or behavior when you are then a assistant director on faith-based films? Because I think there's a very clear difference in like what you're getting on set for that faith-based versus rotten.
Oh yeah, definitely. The faith-based films is the type of people you're working with are church going, no swearing, no nudity, that type of thing. And I've developed the ability to safely switch back and forth. So, I could put on the Halloween costume and run through the woods and cuss and drink and smoke and do everything that's needed to do a campy horror film. And then the next day wake up and, put on a nice jacket, brush my hair, and go be the assistant director.
Yeah, that's a good quality to have, to be able to almost kind of either one way or the other. You're chameleon in yourself, and you're to
But
whichever environment.
in both worlds, though, the movie making process is pretty much the same. I mean, some equipment might be different, more advanced, less advanced, but the process is still the same.
Yeah,
The last one we just did was called The Abiding Nail, and it
right. Yeah,
actually
right.
went to the biggest Christian film festival in the world in Florida
Wow.
at the beginning of May.
There
So
is such a huge market for faith-based films, and it seems like every couple of months one really hits big, and
I mean,
it
look
ends
at
up
what's
sitting in the box
popular.
office.
yeah.
What's popular right now? The Chosen is very popular. Angel Studios, just Cabrini just came out. Very popular film.
We did a Christmas movie in a town called Columbiana that's not too far from here. Year before last, I think, and it was called like The Christmas Angel. I mean, it wasn't like super popular, but it was a really big budget. I mean, it had like massive trucks full of equipment. You know, they rented half the town to do it.
You think it's easier to get investors on a faith-based movie versus a cheap horror movie that you're gonna pour buckets of blood out onto people?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say the number of investors are probably the same, but the amount and interest are completely different. In a faith-based film, you have like organizations and churches and people that can put real money and they expect a real project. And for indie horror films, expectations are a lot lower.
Yeah, I mean, rightfully so. Versus some of the stuff that gets put out with the faith-based stuff. Very rarely are you going to end up with a surprise hit like the Winnie the Pooh horror movie.
I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait.
Oh man, it's great. The sequel's coming out soon, and that's something that, man, I really wish that I had the ability to get in on that, because all this stuff that's coming out right now into the free market for fair use, like you have obviously Winnie the Pooh is the big one, but now Mickey Mouse, like the early
Mouse.
years of Mickey Mouse
Steamboat
before the
Willie.
A lot of that early Disney stuff is going to be free game,
Bambi
in the next couple of years. Yeah, Jiminy Cricket, Pinocchio.
Like, there's a lot of potential and opportunity there. Although, one thing, if I'm able to get some type of project together soon and we were theoretically or hypothetically able to work together, I have been writing a Christmas horror movie for about 2 years now. And I've had so many people say that they were going to jump in on this. And each and every time it's completely fallen apart. And, right here on the Watchers, I'll just throw it out. Maybe maybe we get together and we film this thing together. Get the mad scientist involved.
Okay, I'll start
Stars
with boxes of Christmas decorations.
That was the easiest.
It stars Bill Goldberg as Santa.
Yeah.
So I love that movie too. That dude, Christmas horror, man. It's a little early to talk about right now, but
we're almost halfway there. Almost.
Our channel will definitely, because every year I do Christmas horror stuff just for my own enjoyment. Or Letterboxd. I don't know if you paid attention to Letterboxd. So many people do now that I'm one of those guys where when something gets super popular, I have to step back from it, because otherwise I'll just get into arguments with people. But my Letterboxd,
then he gets into arguments anyways.
But for a couple of years was basically like every December I will watch a new horror movie every day until the end of December. And so that's like Christmas horror is like
I think Christmas horror it's a little bit untapped, right? Because it's the same thing. Santa Claus, evil guy, kills people.
Nah, man.
Almost
so much.
There is so much more, but people don't know about it. All we see every year is evil Santa Claus.
You got your big ones, right? But up until the studio Krampus movie, I don't remember ever seeing a Krampus movie. So once that studio,
now there's a half a dozen of them.
Yeah,
there was an old black and white German Krampus movie.
Yes, there is. But we talked about the Italians earlier, right? So
Lucio and Salvatore.
Some of the best Christmas horror comes from Italy, right? Don't Open Till Christmas. That's a pretty big one. And until 2 Christmases ago, I had never seen it. So there's, you got your Giallos. Even if we're going to talk about the American, what is it? Better Watch Out. That's one of the more creative. I don't want to spoil it, but that movie, you should watch it immediately. If you guys don't wait for the snow, like that movie's just good. Like, so man, I just get real pumped and excited about Christmas horror. And as far as indies go, like our level, like your guerrilla filmmaking, I don't think you see much of that.
Yeah.
For anyone wondering, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just part of a project last year. It was Springsville, and it's basically it's a town that outlaws Halloween and there's a serial killer. But to do a teaser trailer, they wanted to do a Christmas kill scene, and
Okay.
it it didn't work out too well. But the movie itself got made, and it's supposed to be coming out in a month or so.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for that one too. I think logistically too, like the whole Christmas thing, like you have to. I mean, to do it right, you need snow. So
Yeah.
when you're operating at our level and you can't really create snow, you have to go with the weather, and that's not something that we ever really have. This last winter was decent for it for a couple of weeks, but and then the other logistics about all of your gags in the movie, that's you have to be really artistically talented to pull off all the gaffes that you would require for. I mean, for me, right? So Black Christmas,
Mhm.
the original Black Christmas, obviously everybody considers this movie to be like the classic, right? But if it had the original title, there's like nothing about Christmas in that movie other than the fact that it happens and there's snow outside. And on occasion, you'll see some of the Christmas lights or the Christmas tree. None of the murders or any of the gags in the movie are Christmassy at all. And so for me, like I like the total opposite of that. And people dog on the remake, the first one, not that god awful 2019 version, but the 2009 Black Christmas, man. Purists hate that movie, but for what I want out of a Christmas horror movie, that thing was bright. It looks great on my HD TV. There are Christmas lights in every scene. All of the kills are violent. There's like buckets of blood everywhere. And so, yeah, that's kind of the,
That movie.
yeah, those visuals are what I want out of a Christmas horror movie, and something without a budget that would be really difficult to obtain.
Yeah.
I wanted to real quick. I mentioned the German Krampus movie. It's not actually as old as I thought it was. It's actually from 1969. It's called Der Krampus. It stars Hans Holt, who was one of the more popular actors at that time in Germany. But it's very difficult to find this film online. I was scrolling through a couple pages just on your normal search engine, and I found a Croatian website that hosts it, but like it's almost non-existent.
Yeah, your screen froze up again.
To me? Oh, yeah, it
Yeah,
did. Well,
that happened the other
that's
night.
cool. That's a cool thing. At least it shows me a little bit better light than it did the other night. Let me see if I can fix this. Continue speaking.
But we're hitting that hour mark. We generally like to call it at an hour. Dude, I could talk to you literally until 6 a.m. tomorrow. I love talking movies with you, and I honestly, like, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass at all. I've always just had an incredible amount of respect for you from the moment that we met, and you were so inviting for this absolute stranger who was just trying to make a movie in that small town that we met in. And yeah, I really do. I do hope that we can work together again sometime. But in the meantime, I do always keep up, and I want people to watch Cannibal Tick. Um, and I'll have to have you on again because I had some other questions too. I want to pick your brain about distribution and working with SRS Video sometime too.
All right.
But go ahead and promote everything that you can think of that you can promote and get all your plugs in.
Cool. Well, like I said, Rotten Welcome to the Freak Show will be coming out on Folsom in a week or two. Normal Violence is on TUBI. Cannibal Tick is on TUBI. We're starting filming in August on The Devil's Wasteland in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, actually.
Oh, wow.
Right now, I have like 5 scripts under my desk. We're doing one called The Kids. Five Stone, the faith based films, has a script called Sunny 16 that they're going to start on next year. Is actually shooting a soap opera for YouTube. And we're like 4 episodes into that.
That's cool. That's a neat premise.
And between that and doing the acting classes, like I said, with Pete, and still getting into every little thing I can do. I played a small part in a movie called Scavengers. It's supposed to come out next month, I think.
Awesome.
I'm keeping busy.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. And of course, you have your YouTube channels that we will actually go ahead and we'll include links to those in all of the um, descriptions that we put out. And I'm actually going to put this up probably tomorrow. I'm going to play with our release schedule here a little bit. So any of those plugs, people will be able to listen to this and be on the lookout for those films um, in the future there. But again, I want to thank you for joining us tonight on the Watchers. And I'll just throw this out there before we go. I am available pretty much all summer if you end up needing some extra help, and I have the means to swing over to Ohio. I will be in town for SummerSlam. So
Oh, cool.
if nothing else, you know don't be afraid to hit me up, and I might be able to help out.
Okay.
But
Yep.
yeah.
I'm still frozen here. And this is my life now. I live in Northeast Ohio, Bill. If you need anything, holler at me.
Oh, thank you guys. Yeah, we're always looking for people. It's like it's one of the hardest resources to find for indie films.
Yeah, hit us up. I'd love to work with you again. In the meantime, everybody, I want you to check out all of Bill's stuff. He is truly, and I say this like with 100% certainty, a mad scientist of independent film. And if you don't believe me, check out the Video Junkie YouTube channel of his, because that thing was all the proof and evidence that you will ever need. Thank you for joining us, everybody. This is a great episode for what I'm kind of considering the rebirth of the Watchers, or the rebrand. I had a great time. I hope everybody else did, and I look forward to doing it again. And here is the new outro.
The preceding program has been brought to you by the Watchers Podcast Network. If you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends to help grow our network. Check us out on all social media platforms, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, thanks for your support.